have
Mine's just getting hooked up.
oh, he's just getting hooked up, is he?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, right. You've been massively trying to get the system here.
All right,
You're just trying to get teams. Okay.
Yep.
Well, let's just rock through the preliminaries. It's fine. The first one I've got actually is apologies. We got a cast here of thousands, which is great. Thank you. Public forum, Saskia, I haven't been informed of anybody wanting to do it. We have the minutes of the 16th of June, our last meeting. I'll move from the chair be taken as accurate. Thank you, Tamar. Are there any matters of correctness or accuracy you need to note? Efficient minutes, Wayne, thank you. And I don't think there's anything we need to follow up on at this point that isn't here. Actually, you're right, though. I should say thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
Because Sarah was here last time, wasn't she? Yeah. Okay, so look, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, it's carried. We've got your interest there. Is there anything that you need to either update us on or that might relate to this meeting? Believe it or not, I got right into PX and found that there was a minor matter I want to just allude to. I won't raise what is the matter we're considering in PX, but there is a matter that will be referred or is referred to the MB determination unit. Now, that might sound rather minor. I have a son that works in that unit, okay, out of interest. I keep a regular contact with him as to any determinations that might impact on work that he does. And this is not included in it. So I note the interest, but I carry on as chair. Okay. Wayne, the other thing is, by the way, in terms of my particular interests, Regional Software Holdings, I was chair designate, I'm now the chair. That's how much time it takes. Okay. With that, let's say we, do I have to move a motion? Do you know? No, I don't think you do you? Thank you. That gets us straight into the real stuff. And what I think is a good looking, Alex, great news. This is really a good looking schedule in my view. We're looking about things coming up, not things past. So yes. In your hands.
Thank you. I'm trying to race through this one because I expect my next one to take a little bit longer than is scheduled. So we've met the target once again, and that's kept us above it, I think, pretty much all year at 93.58%. Every department except planning and infrastructure is above the 90, and planning and infrastructure is sitting at 85.71. So that is looking good. I expect it to stay there through the end of the year. And in the other departments, pretty much expect them to stay where they are. There are a couple in planning that I'm planning to bring holding policies that'll bring it up in minor amount. Any questions on that one?
Great, thanks, Alex. Questions for Alex? Just a couple from me, sorry. I don't know why I go through these things, but I got very interested because
always keep it open just in case you do.
No. I just want to reflect again that actually I reviewed this time was looking at things that are coming up. So I'm interested how prepared we are to deal with the deadlines, because I think basically the majority, although I do want to raise one, which has a 2024 date against it, just interests me. Can I just look at the governance thing, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But all of those ones, you've got a number coming up in October, which of course is a key date for, say, all of us, for our elected members. And obviously this all becomes part of induction. So it's critical, in my view, that those sorts of matters such as code of conduct, allegations, which we'll talk about a little bit later, etc., all in hand. So everything for these are in hand, given we're going to have to go through an induction process with a new council, legally a new council, hopefully the same people. Be careful how I say that. Possibly the same people post elections.
Yes, they are.
Great, that's what I wanted to hear. Superb, that's what I needed to hear.
I just want to comment on the code of conduct. Code of conduct?
Yes, it is.
There's legislation at the moment being looked at for a code of conduct.
Yeah, centralized study. Yeah.
So let me stand by.
Yeah, I don't think any of us know. The Crown Observer at Wellington suggested it would be a good thing to have external bodies.
We're also expecting a paper from the ORC on the triennial agreement, looking for more details from that one.
Great. I just wondered, and it's under your name, Peter.
That's right.
Organisational plans, buddy. Tell us
Yeah.
where you're at.
Yeah, so we are giving this a little bit more thought. Because we report against that quarterly, and so we sort of think it's probably timing now with the landing on the LTP and that sort of stuff that we're just having a bit of a think about what this should actually look like to get a little bit more functionality, so that when we bring it to council, that it sort of captures on a quarterly basis those things that we can measure and those things that we sort of measure on an annual basis. Because what you get is you get everything, and then perhaps there's some things in there that aren't. So we're just sort of having an internal conversation.
Add to that, so that the team have been, following Peter's conversation, the team have been looking at how we can do it and streamline it a wee bit. It does take a lot of effort, so we put an effort in the right things, and we are thinking about the types of information, pool admissions, the number of people go through our libraries, that kind of information might be quite relevant beyond we have in our annual report. So the team are planning to bring that, I don't know if we can step up the LTP agenda or be the next one, depending on where that conversation goes, to have something ready for the new.
And I think I raised that with a wee bit of trepidation, Peter, in the sense that I think I'm looking at something that's largely operational, and I shouldn't get my sort of hands into the weeds of the organisation, or the mechanics is a nicer way to put it, wouldn't it? But it is interesting to hear that on the list, and it is something which is useful. Hey, look, I'm sorry, I do have a couple of extra questions. The sustainability, well, actually, it was triggered by page 18, Alex, where we talk about the infrastructure resilience plan and response plans that lapsed.
And the sustainability strategy is out of date.
Right, because I then went to the sustainability strategy to find that was out of date, so it was sort of like a double whammy here.
When we move into the long-term plan proposal, you'll see again the place for sustainability and climate change is our current challenge. So I have a couple of ideas in my workings, and I have a date with ELT in about 7th of October to come and talk to them.
All right, okay, well, that's good, thank you. Then I was interested actually in the infrastructure plots really as a group. So roading seemed to have either a wee bit there that is coming up. That's under control?
That's under control. You'll see the roading policy is woefully out of date.
Yeah.
But what we have found is that there's a great deal of overlap between all of those pieces of work.
Yeah.
So Holly Laverick, our roading officer, has separated them all out. She's made them nice and clean and readable. And the last step that her and I are running through now is making sure we didn't strip out anything that legally needed to be there.
Yeah.
So we're on track to have those out end of the year, ready for council, early next year for consultation.
Yeah, I would presume the roading policy is an important input to your next LTP.
Yes.
Yeah. So it'll be I'm sure, highly debated. Again, I looked at water, and there's a bit, not that to make a pun, floating around water here. The thing, and look, I'm out of date with all the regs these days, but I was looking at page 30, and I was just looking at the water services plans. Are we obliged to have, they are mandatory, aren't they?
I believe they're mandatory, but I have no oversight of the waters policies. Those are all managed by Kerry. So
I mean, I appreciate that we're all probably thinking, we're going to kick these away to a WSE. But water safety plans are actually a mandatory measure. Are we okay?
We are. I mean, there's a body of work because with the regulator now.
That's right.
And so the water that is the team are actually working on those as we speak because we have a deadline.
Well, so we've got some other ROI on our shoulders. Okay,
That's right.
Cool. Rightio, that's cool. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for that. Any other questions, guys? Now that I've had a chance to raise mine, as I said, I think it's great. We're talking proactive, looking forward, really, Alex. I know there's one or two that are looking backwards, but you've given me strong comfort that what they are. You've anticipated my questions actually, and that you got them under control. So well done. I'm going to move that we receive the second. Thanks, Tamar. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate that. You guys are probably staying there for the next item, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you lead off, Alex, or Amelia on the LTP, please?
You've got Amelia together, and Wayne is going to load up our PowerPoint. So we're here to, well, this is our launch of the LTP process. The proposal has been through ELT, it's not yet been to council, and it has not yet been to these working groups. So they will be aware on Tuesday of this information. On to the second slide. In the bottom corner there, you'll see Raymond Horan, the patron saint of local government, and he likes to remind us of the tight timeframes. We have 450 days to complete this LTP. We're more than a year in already, and that is really what I'm trying to show you on this slide. So the assumptions we've made when we pulled this together is that in that time frame we can take another step toward grade, but Amelia and I are both perfectionists to our souls, so we're accepting that we are somewhere between good and great, and that's where our aim will be. The community outcomes and the significance and engagement policy had a large refresh last time around, so we won't spend a lot of time there. We'll instead look at tying those into the performance indicators and strategic framework as the next evolution. The financial environment and the level of rates rise is likely to drive some levels of service conversations as well. Additional AMPs are likely to need to be delivered to meet changing audit expectations. And we also assume that government reform will continue throughout the process and will continue to impact us in our timing. So with that in mind, on the next slide, we have the actions that came out of our debriefs. And this is just a very short list. There was quite a lot more of it, but we've got a working group structure as a result of feedback, and we've given a lot of accountabilities and deliverables to try to get some of those definite items ticked off quite early and sequenced. We've got a strong relationship between ELT and the project management team established. And we've decided to focus on LTP training and upskilling for both staff and elected members along the way before we ask for decisions to be made. We will clarify timelines and deadlines, engage governance early. ELT will ensure some consistency. We will identify the items for consultation early. That work is starting now. And the project team will take ownership of internal communication. So out of scope is Southern Water done well, but we're just really conscious that that will be happening at the same time and there'll be a lot of overlap. Next slide.
I just stop you because this is actually an ongoing theme I'm beating around the country. You say what council looks like is out of scope. How can you say that?
What council looks like?
I mean, this LTP that you're coming up to, is all about what council will look like post Southern Waters.
It is actually. We were thinking of this as the transition LTP to that, so that's why the wording is like that.
I think it's also a
For
good
2
point
years.
to know
I mean, you're saying it's an LTP for 2 years.
that
1 year actually. Oh no, because what you transition 1 July 20.
the same time. It will be the same time.
27.
Yeah.
So it's a new council. It's a new council LTP.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Great. I mean, I just.
No,
I've always
that's
thought this LTP was about what it's going to be.
Yeah, and so that's right. I mean, because 1st July 2027, with Waters gone, what does the rest of the council look like in terms of how we shape group and that sort of stuff? And this is the LTP to take us to, because we could have slightly different configurations as an organisation post Waters leaving, and so this next 2 years is for us to get into and work with the councillors to say what does it look like.
And we've also talked about the opportunity to have a great rates reset, how we are rating as well. So
it's going to be very challenging with the timeframes because the setup of the new entity will really kick off probably from about March next year, Peter. And we are doing budgets by June. So there's actually and we don't know how much this new entity is going to need for us to still do stuff for them, like whether water billing stays with us for a couple of years. So it's going to be quite a challenging LTP because until we know that form of that new entity and if it's going to be a clean break, which I'd be really surprised if it is a clean break, we don't know. It's very hard for Peter to know what his organisation looks like in the times that we're doing the budget. So it is going to be challenging from that perspective. But definitely we have our eye on that in terms of how they interrelate, but
Already a year short.
Eventually, we're going to go from the last LTP quickly, straight into this one quickly, straight into the next one quickly, with all of that happening at the same time, and the systems improvement bill in the middle.
Look, I agree, and I think actually I do want us to all agree that I think we all are roughly on the same page. All I'm reflecting is a published document for 1 July 27 be without 3 waters. You have now I take your point well made, Saskia, because I've seen it elsewhere as well. There are, in terms of implementation of the WSC, transitional arrangements like water billing or even providing backroom services, yada, 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 all that sort of stuff that will go on past the physical date. Primarily this LTP is with the transition occurring, and it will be all about what is Central Otago. It's different. And so that seems to me that the strategy and the thinking is to really be about what are you in the future, what are you in the future. That's why, sorry, it might have seemed a bit strong and a wee bit allergic, but that's why I wonder about the reduction of that.
Four-word choice, because there is that, and there is also a separate piece of work happening at the same time. It's considering that has a lot of overlap. So
Right. Okay.
We'll take the note from you on that one.
Sorry, no, that's all good stuff. I mean, we're having this conversation at the right time, dare I say. So don't get me wrong, it's a great conversation.
It is something that the community has asked too.
Yeah.
You see that in writing, and not just from our council, but from around New Zealand. They say, well, if water's gone, what does council do? What does council do?
Absolutely.
How does it look? How many people do you need? All those things. People's responsibility on that side.
I was just going to add to it as well that I think there's going to be needing to be more extra time to bring new elected members up to speed as well, because it's, like we're going straight into an LTP, and that's a lot to take on with the borders and everything.
Relax, I've diverted you from your
It's a
presentation.
note
Keep going.
worth making, so we've noted it. Here's the LTP team, and you can see it is massive. We've got the executive leadership team moving responsibility, as does the mayor. Accountability sitting with that project coordination team and our working group leads, as well as our council and yourselves. And then we've got our working group members and leadership team and community boards, just representing everybody who is involved in this in some way. And next slide. This is the overview of how we've divided up the work. It's sitting in roughly 10 buckets, including the project management bucket, plus there's one on the Māori partnership and a series of relationships, largely with yourselves. So I won't list you the names now because we're about to go into each in detail, and that will save us some time. So Wayne will just jump straight in. Oh, sorry. First of all, the way that we are going to keep oversight of all of those groups is through a terms of reference. It looks somewhat like that. It lists out the key deliverables, who's in each group and their timeframes. The first task for each working group will be to update that terms of reference and come back with their expectations for themselves to us. They'll keep a very brief meeting log so we can keep oversight and track what's happening. And there's an icon to just make sure everybody knows we're not intending to replace meetings, just add to them. So the first group we'll go into is the internal coordination of project management group. That is Amelia and myself with Saskia, Tash, Marie and Rebecca Williams. Our deliverables are obviously the project plan, risk register, the governance oversight, reporting and internal deadlines, highlighting the benefit realisations and the project review. I'm going to race through these, so just stop me anytime you need more time. And next we've got strategy and regional alignment. I will be leading this group alongside Saskia, Rebecca Williams, Amelia here, and with Paula. And each group has an ELT champion, so the one for this one is Saskia. Our main deliverables are the strategic scan that's underway now, the community outcomes are largely done, and the strategic priorities and framework. And the next group is finances, rates and funding, led by our friend Paul here, alongside Donna and Gusaywick. That's to cover the financial strategy, the liability management policy, the investment policy, the revenue and financing policy, the rates remission and postponement policies, as well as all our budgeting, planning, affordability settings analysis and rates modelling. They are also going to tackle the DC's policy alongside Mark Hardman, Quentin Peniel, Gordon Bailey and Gareth Robinson. And we just note that there are some changes to DC's in the systems improvement bill, so they're also monitoring that. The next group is demographics and growth forecasting that Quentin is leading. The ELT champion for that is David. He was also, Saskia was champion for rates. David is the ELT champion for this one, and they will be doing the updated growth forecasts. A lot of that work is underway, so they're just collating what's in the organisation. Next up is what they'll do with it. That's probably the largest group we've got. It's infrastructure, AMPS and capital program. And they will be tasked with delivering additional AMPS we didn't deliver last time. That is largely in the property and pools and parks space, which you can see in the makeup of the group. So because it's so large, we've got Quentin and Mark tackling that together with Lee, Gareth, Paul, Gordon, Nathan and Carly. And infrastructure strategy, AMPS, and the 30-year infrastructure plan. This, as I signalled to you in the last chat, this is the only space we've got room for any of that emissions content and environment content, and it is a bit of a gap. We have thought, as this is a short transitional LTP, we will do our best and set it up to do better in the next one. Next group is levels of service and KPIs. Amelia is going to lead that. The ELT champion is Saskia alongside the new planning and infrastructure champion. They're in the group alongside Carly, Rebecca, Tash, our corporate planner, and Nathan. And yes, they'll be delivering updated levels of service for each activity and aligning our KPI to our community outcomes and our reporting framework. Next is community engagement, engagement plans, submissions and reporting to the community, and that's led by Paula, and the ELT champion for that is Louise, and she'll be doing that with Rebecca, Deb, who's here today, and Melissa, our graphic designer. And we've got the drafting of the document itself, which I'll be doing, Saskia, ELT champion, and she will also be there with Paul and Melissa. And obviously our deliverable there are the two documents. Our estimated date that is December 2026. Legislative compliance, that obviously sits with Saskia, and then she's got Paul and myself, Amelia and Tash helping her with that one. And she is her own ELT champion. Quality advice and democratic processes is the group who are looking at any training that either group could use, including, as Sally very carefully mentioned, the induction process for all the new members and upskilling everybody that we have, and that group is starting to form now to figure out what that's going to look like. Next group is Peter leading our partnership with Okaha, starting that conversation. And we've assumed Peter can champion himself as well.
I know I should give him the biggest photo.
Big head.
Yeah, it is. They're all scaled to the same size and width. So. And poor Wayne, my paparazzi in a meeting. That's why he looks a bit cross with me.
That's my standard picture.
And this is just how we're coordinating all of those relationships with our various groups. You'll see the same names across it. Peter, Wayne, Saskia, Amelia and myself, with Paula and facilitating those community relationships. And Fraser and Jolie looking at that role of Southern Water done well and what that means for us. The last group there, it's just worth noting it technically is a bucket, and that's that oversight and organisational input from ELT as a whole. And then we move on to reporting frequency, and this is very draft at the moment, but the Mayor owns the document, so the Mayor will set the frequency of updates they're most comfortable with. That's a key relationship to be established, and we will be showing up within days of that election to establish that with the Mayor. Audit and Risk Committee, you asked for quarterly updates to start with, so that's what we've noted. Councillors, again, we will come post-election and see what they're comfortable with, but we would say there will at the minimum be quarterly updates from us as a project team with a bunch more updates from the working groups themselves scheduled in there as well. And we'll commit to quarterly updates with community boards and increase the frequency as we need to too. The next slide is what that looks like for staff. We don't need to go into that in detail. It basically says it starts at quarterly and it ends up as weekly, and we'll increase it as we need to get through the work. So this is the timeline for the working groups roughly, and we just cross-referenced it to look for the busy patches, and it is really late or mid to late 2026. We expect everyone to be really, really busy here in the delivery phase. Just really roughly, these are the milestones we wanted to hit. So we need to hit the strategic scan this month, and then moving into the next startup, identifying those key consultation issues, inducting new members and holding strategy sessions. Next slide, Wayne. Into the first quarter of next year, we'll be commencing those LTP workshops and have wrapped up strategy. And then into the second quarter, we'll be quite deep in budget development, deep in those LTP workshops and in community pre-engagement with the infrastructure strategy well underway. By Q3, the infrastructure strategy should be done, and we should be into the 30-year infrastructure strategy instead. And by Q4, I should be completely grey because those documents will be drafted. Which moves us into next year when we'll be in the audit process. We have heard from the auditors that last time around there were about 7 they were auditing at once. This time there'll be 40 something. So they've told us late March at the very earliest for us to have the document back from them, which will be a bit of a squish. Next slide, Wayne. And then final adoption by 30th of June 2027. And the slide after that just is to recognise there'll still be some wrapping up to do and benefits realised. So to run you through that timeline, I'll make sure to send it all to you so you can look at it in more detail and throw us questions. But that brings us to the next slide, straight into our 2025 update. So we have established the project, basically done as all of the things you've seen here. Currently working on the strategic scan, Paul's team's working on the rates review, and Mark and QP are looking at the scope of the infrastructure strategy as we speak. We've got our leadership briefing on the 22nd of September, our working group briefing next Tuesday, and we've started planning into Q4. Next slide. That is the main actions for each group in Q4. That is largely planning, except for ELT, who will need to be in that space of working out those consultation items. And skip ahead to the next one, Wayne. These are the key actions in the working groups. So strategic scan over here. Paul's team is setting up for the LTP by finalising the annual plan and working on that rates review. Saskia will be hard at work on that induction process alongside Wayne, QP in forecasting to move into AMPs, Amelia in the performance measures and level of service, and Peter will be opening the discussion with Okaha, and we will all be opening the discussion with the Mayor. And then the final slide is our key messages for you, and that is the expectation that we are pitching in there between good and great. It's a very short timeline. Upskilling and giving everybody the knowledge they need to make the best decisions is our key focus. Performance indicators and levels of service are our key conversations. Additional AMPs are required to meet changing audit expectations. And the work is starting immediately on key consultation issues. And sorry to rush you through that.
That's tremendous. Seriously, that is. So look, I just wonder if there's any comments or questions. I've got a couple more to make, to be honest, but I wondered first, as Tracy came up.
Yeah, I've got one. Just in relation, and I don't know, this is, I guess, just the consultation items. It's going to be an interesting piece to try and navigate, given the potential for considerable change around the table.
It is. It's going to be the biggest and most difficult one, which is why it needs to start now. Conversations are underway.
Other comment that I had was just around community boards now that we've districtised is giving them giving some consideration in how community boards can submit into the LTP. So now that we don't have our own little buckets, I think just making sure that we bring them along and how we're going to have a fair way to prioritise things. So if all 4 wards decided they wanted a new playground, we'd have a way of figuring out which ward would get the first one off the block. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and the first one above Cromwell will go to Roxbrook. Yeah, yeah. But no, I think it's just, I think it's just trying to give some consideration to
Point taken.
that.
Yeah.
We will make sure we do that.
Good point.
Well, it's interested, Alex, and well, actually, if I could just make one sort of expectation. Very grateful that you've got us included in this process, and I think even with the last one, we even considered the final version of the LTP, which I think is important for some reason, which for a number of reasons, but one of them is that clearly one of the strategic risks we monitor is affordability and our financial risk. So and sorry, you're talking to an accountant here. I'm an accountant, obviously, and as is Paul. I didn't see financial strategy in here and when you're going to do it. Now, I think it's implied, but actually, can I say, in looking at this, I actually think the financial strategy is understated. And the question becomes, when do you have to prepare a financial strategy? Is it the result of all your planning? Is it driving financial position? And I'm arguing for the latter because that's a more virtuous position to be in. And I haven't quite seen it in here. And I'm looking down at you, Paul. Because, I mean, you're the man that's going to write the financial strategy. I mean, obviously, I hear about a rating review, etc. But actually, the critical thing is I didn't quite see, I can see the infrastructure strategy in here, and it's certainly coming at what seems to me to be the, pardon?
Page 36.
Page 36. Have I missed that, have I?
The deliverable.
Well, yeah, but when?
Yeah,
When is my point? My point really is the strategy just going to be the sum total of what comes out of the numbers? Or actually are we driving for a particular financial position? If we want to take a view on what is affordable, it has to drive how you budget and plan, not what is the result that comes out. I'm just interested to know where that really sits in here. So look, sorry, Tamer, you're quite right that we do say financial strategy, but I'm trying to understand at which part of the development cycle are you going to start with it.
And we've had these discussions about, the financial strategy and whether that's driving what this LTP looks like. We really got to the point where we talked about what that new triennium brings to us and how actually we won't know until we get a direction from the new council as to how strong that new council wants us to be in the financial strategy driving everything else, or the approach that we've previously taken, which is kind of a bit more of a balance of things we want to do driving the financial strategy.
Paul's timeline is a 64-line Excel document. It's to save me continuing to peer through it in my lip.
I mean, to be fair, it does cover 5 continuous projects, starting with our annual plan next year. So in terms of the financial strategy, I kind of thought it was implied, but I take your point. The other thing is, historically, the financial strategy at CODC has always been an end result.
I know.
And I have suggested that there are 2 ways to do this. This is either we get the fiscal envelope up front from the council and say, this is what we're expecting, or we present budgets and then we start fitting budgets to an expectation. My preference would be the former, which is your latter, effectively, so that we know what we're actually working with as a team. So that, as Amelia said, we kind of need to wait until we get the flavour of the new council.
I understand that. Yeah. Look, I mean, I think here, Alex, because I have thought about, you've got your strategy set by 1/26. I have to say, best of luck, And I don't mean, which is a wee bit naughty of me to sound a wee bit cynical. I think the point is, I can't help but see this will be your most difficult LTP. I think it's the problem. So it's a sort of the feedback loop, which I think you will find that we will be in, which is, I agree, we can get strategy going, we can get a financial strategy going for, say, a fiscal envelope in, let's say, Q1 or Q2, whatever it is, you'll have to revisit it. So it's not as if, I think this is the difficulty of even looking at it as a straight line here, which otherwise is, it's tremendous planning and it's great. I love it. I think we're going to have to be prepared. How do we build agility to thinking this through? Because you're going to have to come back to it all the time. That'll be the biggest risk that you'll probably put on the risk register for us. So
That's why I've got a strategy lead in the middle of it in Saskia in there too. So we'll keep coming back.
But I just want to, hopefully this is a little learning point. Sorry, and I'm being a wee bit preachy here. But KR18, our strategic risk, is affordability and financial sustainability. So if we're a council that is being driven by what our objectives are, and we've identified this as a key risk, we pile in on this one. Otherwise, it's not a key risk. So that's why I seriously raised this issue of actually what's driving our planning. Because I would expect in an organisation where we have affordability and financial sustainability is a key risk. I mean, along with the rest, don't get me wrong, accountant, sorry, but actually that would start driving actually our planning process, or rather it would be a strong influencer in the totality of the planning process. That's all I want to raise. So let me put that to you. And actually that also then gets me, and I will be interested, I don't know how big it is. We'll be reflecting this as a big issue for us at another growth council, but I'd be very interested in how you go through the growth forecasting.
Yes.
Particularly given good old TODC and our growth here. That will become pivotal, I think, in actually our plans. Look, one last point from me, Alex. I think this committee can help in other areas, apart from reporting. I would be very interested that we help you have tight audit relationships. But the fact that they have already said to you, but actually this won't be delivered until March 2027 for the CD, I don't know whether that's acceptable. Now, that's not having a crack at you. I'm saying auditors have a discussion with the right people, and it's the governors. So I won't accept that, not because you guys have done good work, but I'm looking for an audit service. So I would be expecting the auditors to come to us, but if that's their preliminary position, they can come to us on the 5th of December and tell us that. Okay, and we can have a meaningful discussion. Obviously, somewhere they're going to come to us with an audit plan, whatever they call it these days, an arrangements letter, which we should formally do as well. But we'd like, can I tell you, I think I can say this on behalf of my committee, we want to help you with that one in particular. Okay, look, sorry, it sounds like I'm being a bit noisy. I have been a bit of a gong. Is there anything else folk would like to raise here? A really great plan. This really shows Saskia that everybody's learned out of the last round, and it will be one of those times when we all have to join together to get this one through. And I like the fact that you're trying to integrate this much more across the organisation, which is really, really superb. So hopefully we as the committee, Alex and Amelia, can help you along the way on that one.
We see us working together, so that would be great.
Okay, the reports to be received. Of a mover and a second. Thanks, Tracy. Thank you, Sally. The motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Those against? It's carried. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done, guys. Okay, we better keep ourselves moving. The annual report. Who's going to have a chat to me about that one? Paul, is that you? Is that you, Saskia? Who's
It's us. Yeah.
It's us. Oh, okay. Sorry. Of course. Yeah. Go for it.
Kick off.
I can kick off, yeah.
Donna's got notes, you see.
Oh, welcome to the meeting. Sorry, I should have seen you down the far end there. It's great to have you here.
I've just got scribbles through mine, Bruce, with changes that we need
That's
to make.
scribbles through mine as well, mate.
So what you've been given to you is the first draft of the annual report 24-25, which was the best available information that we had at the time. We will have Audit New Zealand starting our audit on the 22nd of September, with our audit opinion scheduled on the 31st of October to be adopted by Council. So we have decided to bring you the draft annual report, and then we will take a draft annual report to the Council at the next Council meeting as well. So since writing this draft annual report, we have had some significant, one in particular significant invoice coming through of about 340,000. So it will impact the inventory balance on the statement of financial position by increasing our current assets, and alongside that increasing our creditors as well. This transaction, as it is inventory, does not impact the revenue and expenses. So therefore, the operating surplus that you see in the annual report at the moment is what you should see for the final one, or close to, unless we receive something else that we're unaware of. So highlights include the operating surplus being 7.9 million, which is slightly lower than the annual plan of 8.1 million. So we have had some additional land sales and fees and charges come through which were outside of the plan. We had noted them through the year as part of our forecasting process. And then we've also had lower grants and subsidies, as well as interest revenue, and development contributions and financial contributions are also lower than expected. Expenses have been higher than the annual plan. This includes personnel costs. Some of these have been offset with surpluses and reserves, as well as increased income that has reduced the overall impact for this increase. Other expenses have included increases to our audit fees for both the annual report and also the long-term plan, along with additional resources that have been required to deliver the long-term plan, the Cromwell Town Centre business case, building and resource consents, and also the local water done well projects, which have all been outside of the annual plan. We've also had some increases in our maintenance costs with the Roxburgh Entertainment Centre, emergency works events, and 3 Waters fiscal works, which are above the annual plan budgets as well. Capital expenditure, we finished with $50.6 million of capital expenditure, which is 18.8 million lower than the annual plan budgets of 69.4 million. Alongside this, it has also reduced the level of external borrowing that has been required, with the areas behind including 3 Waters, roading and environmental services. For the statement of financial position, total assets are slightly lower than expected, with a total of 1.289 billion against an annual plan of 1.29. Did I just say the same thing? 1.289 billion in actuals against an annual plan of 1.29 billion. So receivables, inventory and investment bonds balances are higher than expected. Property, plant and equipment has increased due to the revaluation in parks and reserves, roading and 3 Waters. And this has reduced the overall impact of the lower capital expenditure that we have produced during the year. Total liabilities are lower than expected, with a total of 63.6 million against the annual plan of 999.7 million, and that is due to the lower than expected external loans. And those are my highlights.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate that. Before we consider that and we move into consideration of the annual, around the rings, Saskia, or wanted to raise before we open up the conversation.
in terms of, there will be some additional information that we want to put in.
Yeah.
Donna briefly touched on it in terms of the capital completion. I think that that's important to be talking about that. It was a 73% completion rate. Which, given that that's $18 million that we'll be carrying forward into the next year, which already has a full plan of work. We've talked about this in the past, that I think that there are some stresses that will come on to capital delivery next year and the year after. So we want to put some more information in the activity space in each of the activities around their capital completion rate. That's the main thing that I think needs to go into this.
Okay, folks. So look, this actually is, I think as we've acknowledged, given just timing, is our last chance to, as a committee, look at it before we get over to a new council, which is always it happens every triennium, unfortunately. And I think it does well that we get this through on 30 April, that the council meeting will be. But it'll be a bit of a challenge. So in lots of ways, I am prepared just to spend a wee bit of time looking at this, because I think it's important that we, well, Peter, on behalf of the outgoing council, you can represent a fair look at by the outgoing council. So I am happy to have a wee bit of a look with it. So firstly, before we look at the annual report, Donna, you have quite expertly gone through the outcomes, the financials, and there's a wee bit there around the non-financials on page 48. Is there any questions, team, about the sort of the outturn, the financial outturn as it's been disclosed at this stage? Probably the most thing being already the point you've made, Paul, which is a 73% achievement rate. It's an impact on debt levels and yada yada yada, lots of stuff. Any sort of questions, comments?
I think we do need to cover that off in some detail, because this keeps coming year after year and we cannot be carrying $14 million. The only other thing I noted before we get into the gap for that was on the statement of financial position. Assets, that doesn't add up.
Yeah, we know that. We know that.
You owe the Mayor a chocolate fish, or you're gonna put a not adding. Oh, by the way, I got chocolate fish coming up because I've got a misspelling that I've read, but that's unless you can tell me you've changed the spelling of Vincent.
That really doesn't add. So it is 21,000. Well, it's actually million. 455.
Yep,
is what the total outcome will be with the adjustment to inventory.
I didn't get that. Sorry, you've got. I probably owe you a chocolate fish.
And that goes to
What page is that, guys?
so on page 45, so just the total current assets for this year's for 24-25 actuals, it was the same as 23-24. But I did notice that actually when you get to total assets, it does add with what the number should be.
Yeah, they were put in
It's
there
just
just
a
to make sure that you
number.
were reading it.
That's a pretty thin excuse. Nice try.
I just had a comment around the staffing and staff costs going up, and just highlighting that part of it is because we've got more swim school instructors, because we've got a lot of kids, we've got more revenue, and I just think that's good, because often the feedback that we get is we've got too many staff, and when people look at the budget and say we've budgeted more in staff, that actually it's because we're getting more revenue from those programs. I think it's good.
Part of that too, though, would have been that in seeing the budget for the 24-25 financial year, when it's 18%, we were looking for savings across the organisation. We took 5% out of the staff budget.
Yeah.
And carried that as risk. But then, as you say, things happened and we had to find additional staff.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the contributing factors as well.
Why don't we go to the end report then? And this is our chance. This is actually the best chance for you, because it's well, actually good, not only because it's the only meeting, but this is the time when we haven't even got the auditors here yet. So it's a good chance to have a review. What I would like to do is perhaps just what I'm asking you as committee members is, I always say to you, can you see the year of that you've experienced with Central Otago in these accounts? Because we've got an upfront set of statements, which are really important. Simple as Tamar and Peter's forward. But then we've got also in the statements of service performance in particular, the achievements, the highlights, etc., of what has been delivered by Central Otago over the course of the year. And I think this is our accountability. It's not, it is management's as well, but it's our accountability as elected members. And so the critical thing is this telling the story? Has it got the things you'd expect the end to emphasise? So what does that mean? That probably means, can we deal with sort of the front half of it? We'll get to the financials afterwards. That's the most exciting part, isn't it, Paul? But let's deal with it. I mean, let's think about the front first. Does it look like, you know, as I say, the year that you've had and that you want to have expressed in the single report? Any comments or thoughts from, as you've had a chance to look at it?
I think it does. I think it, all in all, is an accurate reflection of what we have achieved this year against what we hope to achieve.
Yep.
My worry is the same as it always is that we won't read it, which is a shame because all of the information is there. And I'm not sure how we break that down. It's a separate conversation of how do we inform our public on this, but in terms of the individual, activities in there, I think it's easy to read, which is great. It's well covered, but there are some additional challenges coming from this.
The questions from me. I take it that we do have the forward here, by the way, without being pedantic. We've got a clear page on
It's going to leave it blank.
page 57. I wondered if that was the case. I presume from a design perspective, that gets subsumed by what's on page 58, correct? Yeah, okay, that's cool. No worries at all. But actually, despite the challenges around capital delivery, I think it's great that we start off with, I know we can critique in an academic sense the benchmarks, but the benchmarks tend to all be on the right side of the ledger for us, which, we shouldn't sneeze at. So, this is where Tamar, I'd say, you're right, nobody's going to read this, but it's actually a question of how do we use this as a springboard for what we do tell people. It's a bit hard because this won't be adopted till post the election, but actually what is it that the community need to hear, particularly as you go into the LTP planning cycle, which is it's really on the thread at the moment. So I think, I just want to acknowledge that. I don't know who this is, I tend to focus on sort of 2 or 3 key activities, and I agree with you, Tamar, that we are going okay. It's a good presentation. I don't have any comments about what you choose to highlight because I think I'm not quite as close to the action in Central Otago as you guys are. Can I just check some of the performance measures though on page 75? Look, it's always a tension-filled set of numbers, but the resolution, and I noticed we had fault response call-out times, with the reasons being, we were a very dispersed community, gone from, if I've read this correctly, an hour 18, urgent call-outs in terms of attendance to 3 hours 11, and the resolution has shown a similar, I use the word blowout in times, perhaps that's too dramatic. And we say that we basically say that, broadly speaking, it's because we're a dispersed. Is that satisfactory? It is what it is. It is what it is. So to some extent, we're being very open with our accountability.
Worse than we were the year before. More dispersed than we were the year before.
I wonder.
But wasn't that a change in the?
Yeah. So this is reflecting obviously the past year. So we're now in a new contractual arrangement.
That's right.
And so some of this has been addressed and folded into the new contracts. But there is still, I mean, the fact of the matter is, a large chunk of the workforce does not reside in Ranfurly. So there's an incident with contractors that we use as staff are based predominantly at this end of the valley. And so there's always going to be a challenge for us to meet the urgent requirement.
The less than 1 hour is a mandatory requirement, isn't
That's
it? Yeah. See this, I mean, and again, this is where you've got to think cost benefit in terms of the amount of time on this one, you know, in terms, I mean, our annual report. But I'd say that. I'd say we've looked at this, we're addressing it, but we will remain. You know, I think for the want of a couple of sentences around this, it just helps. So I would do that, because I mean, if I was being a picky ratepayer, I'd say, why do you improve the non-urgent call-outs in favour of the urgents? You know what I mean? So just putting it together and the picture it discloses. So I'll leave that for what it's worth. I mean, I'm not. It is just those sorts of things which occur.
I feel like there was something, did Julie talk about, because it was tied into that one going from a day to 43 minutes for a non-urgent, and there was a change in the way some folks were categorised, or
That's what she said. It's
what
That's
was
the
classed as urgent and what wasn't,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think there
So
was
maybe
so some sentences around that.
Yeah. Can you just tell me what page? I must confess, I had to try and understand because they look important. The pages, it's 79 through 82. What are they? What are they commenting?
Are you talking about the new drinking water performance index? Sorry, we're in the annual.
Yeah. That is. Sorry. Yeah, it's page 29 through 32 of the actual. If you've got the annual report.
Right.
Yes.
All I wanted to do is I was just trying to make a connection between the reported performance and what this is, and I just thought it. I mean, for shorthand, I just thought it could do with a wee bit of an explanation, but I may be missing. Read this too
We've
far.
actually made a decision to remove that because it's not actually part of the performance measures, where the performance measures is actually the summary
Yeah,
of that detail. And normally we wouldn't put that level of detail in there. I think we've made a decision to remove that and just rely on the performance measures themselves. What we have added for the new performance measures, because of course they've just changed again in June, is we've created a wee table that identifies what the new measures mean by partially met, almost met, and
yep.
met as well. So we're going to put that wee table in there.
Oh, sorry. So the table explains what that means.
Yeah, so
Yes.
for argument's sake,
Yes.
it will tell you the range of partially met between 50 and 70, whatever the number happens to be, so that we can see, because kind of 62% for argument's sake means not a lot. Are we at the top end of partially, at the bottom end of it, that type of thing? So we're going to put them, it's almost a key. But
I think the other thing, Paul, was my note was an explanation. What does partial mean?
So it's anywhere from 0.05% to about, I think, 70% off the top of my
What
head.
does that mean in terms of received service? You know, I
know, and that comes down
that's
to
what
the
I'm saying. Does that mean that
interpretation.
62% of the time my water was okay or not okay? You know, we're back to this. You know, SCADA was down for an hour. We had whatever it is. It needs just. I think it could do. And I love your key. I think you just added a sentence or two which explain why do we even use the word partial? That's all I'm going for.
The same with almost,
Yeah,
because
that's
you know
right.
you're 99.8%. Well, if you're 99.8, what the heck was the last 0.2 that you didn't quite get?
Does that mean if I drank the water in the 0.2%, 0.02%, you know what I mean?
DIA's measure and see if they have an explanation on that, because
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to make something up that wasn't in their interpretation.
although I guess that table that you were asking about originally,
Yeah.
in terms of the detail, provides the non-compliances, so you can see
Yeah,
if you were looking at the summary in conjunction with the detail, you would see, for argument's sake, that Branfurly was 99.66% compliant, so that would be an almost, but here's the non-compliances that tipped us below
activity rules.
the 100.
Yeah,
So I think that's kind of what you're after, and maybe it's how do we make this table merge with the top one so that it's got the information that you need in it?
Turns it out, so it makes
Well,
sense.
it's even giving examples, you know, that partial is whatever percentage.
Yeah.
But, you know, what cause it to be partial
Just an
compliance
indicator.
is, for instance, turbidity. Okay, Miles, well, thank you. Is what is the, you know, what, you know, give an example for what I'm trying to say, turbidity after a wet weather event. Okay, thank you. See, I looked at that. Oh, look, can I ask an accounting question? Just so that I'll ask a dumb question, Paul, and you'll say, of course, that is the answer here. I'm always interested in trying to interpret our FIS statements, our financial statements. I'm looking at page 83, and we created a surplus on our water operation of $3 million, and we've had roughly we've spent around about $8 million on capital. And I'm interested in the increase in reserves at $3.4. Does that suggest that essentially our surplus from operations went straight to reserves and we've funded our capital from debt?
Basically, yes, that is what it says. In reality, what that means is that the reserve for Three Waters has been in deficit by a significant amount. And
Yes.
we are working through uplifting debt to offset that reserve.
Thank you. I wondered if that was the case, that you were having to correct a position because you've had to put it to reserves to bring it back up. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. Okay, sorry, a little accounting question there. Okay. Right, yeah, I'm going to keep flicking over. In fact, that I think I need to check. I should have. I won't tell you where I got my chocolate fish from, but you'll see a Vincent in there that hasn't got the N.
I've got a typo on page 177, which was scouting instead of scouring.
I must confess, you're so proud of the heartstrings. I like the look of the Manuherikia Valleys Community Hub project. It looked like a good building. It's being played rugby on that ground and being beaten most times. It's it was great to see it there.
That's what I thought.
He also enjoys the Alexandra Airport with a lovely photo and came in significantly under budget.
I have only ever been once to the Alexandra Airport. That was by running from here, but I was a lot younger in those days. So
I have a little question under the waste management,
Yep,
because in
sure.
one part of the thing, it said that they thought that the target might not have reached because we've got more waste. And we're setting our targets on what it was at the start. So I wonder if that's correct, if we should put a little note in saying that we might not have reached the target due to we've got more residents.
Yep.
Versus rather than that we're creating more waste.
Yeah.
Percentage we reach it probably.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
what we, not by volume.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
A bit of question in relation to, just for, I guess, for optics as well, in relation to, it's on page 62 of our agenda, but page 12 of the draft and 62 of our agenda, and it's in relation to the rates affordability table. Qualified limit on rates and then as against the actual rates. How, I guess, when I was reading through that, I was just trying to, if I was somebody who wasn't coming from a background when they talk about the quantified limit on rates, and what does it actually mean? Like, if you actually, how do people actually pick that up and say, oh, okay, what I'm seeing is council has spent too much on our rates from what the black box told us we should be spending on our rates.
But what we should be spending is what the council decided was its level of increase at the time. And that was changed. We changed that in the LTP going forward because of the last couple of years where we had some significant rates increases. the fact that, and I can't tell you where it's 5% or it's where the 5% came from. But you look at it now, given the cost structures and the cost inputs that we have, 5% is completely unacceptable.
Yep.
But that comes back to what we were talking about in the LTP process in terms of the financial strategy. If the council had said 5%, that's what we said, that's what we're going to deliver, then we get a different outcome in our budgeting process because we come in at 5%, but that has a level of service question. So what we've programmed in for the next LTP, we have used a figure, and I think we've used 5% as a starting point, but we've also said that we will add the local government construction index on top of that. So as our costs go up, as measured across local government, our ability to levy rates will go up to meet that. So that was kind of an arbitrary hard line, 5%. Back in the day, I guess, when it was, we don't want to see anything more than CPI. Who would have thought 2 or 3 years ago we had 6 and 7% CPI, but that was designed, I guess, for that. But it does bear no resemblance to being flexible enough for our costs as we incur them, and whether the council wants to turn around or had, and that's why I said that historically we haven't set the fiscal envelope up front and said work within that. We've kind of said what does it look like, and what do we think we can sustain going forward. So that's how those things come about, and it is always it's a function of your financial strategy and how you want to go forward into the next 10 years.
Because obviously, I'd say I remember first coming onto council when there was a historical, and it wasn't a hard and fast route, but there was a.
It was from the 2015 long-term plans.
Yeah,
They found a copy, and that was when they anticipated that right out to last year and this year we would be set at less than 5%, but that didn't account for a pandemic and 40% increase in construction costs per session.
I think the other thing, Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, but of course, we're at year 4 of an LTP, not
That's right.
year
Correct,
3.
yes.
So in fact, what was that 5%, regardless, well, actually, I guess I'm thinking about its rationale, was set in probably 2020, pre-COVID low interest
Just
rate.
before something quite big happened.
Environment. So, I mean, I think that you're raising a good point here, if I can interpret it as well. Do we say enough here about that? Have we emphasised this year 4, and year 4 was set 5 years ago when life looked a lot different, which would be of interest there. The pressure to take that one on. Thank you, Tracy. I think that would be worth thinking about, because as I said, we open up with these financial prudence benchmarks. But it's sometimes quite good to put a bit of effort into explaining why we've got the result we have, and we can add a sentence or two that goes that way.
Another question I had in page 69, estimating roading roughness. I thought we took that out. I thought that measure was taken
last year.
Yeah, but this is the draft for this.
The annual report. I think we took it out for this long term.
We've taken it out moving forward, haven't we?
Okay, that's right. I just wanted to.
Still a measure.
I'm just checking, see whether it's management.
And I think it was so arbitrary, and people, it's way too subjective to be able to, because everyone's opinion of how rough a road is largely dependent on the car they drive.
And how they drive it.
And how fast they go. And then the flip path works in 94. Am I correct? 1.219. So I've actually put my little comment over the top of it. Something of footpath renewals. Let's say kilometres. I've got a
219 kilometres.
That doesn't make sense, does it?
Not much, is it?
1.219, or is it?
It's 1.219. If it had a comma, you'd be in big trouble.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's right. I was just.
It's 1.2 kilometres.
Yeah, that's right. I was just making.
So
sure
1,200 metres.
Yeah, okay.
It's better to say 1,200 metres or 1.2 kilometres, but same thing, I suppose.
And I guess the other big thing is, and this ties into exactly what Paul you're saying about the fiscal envelope and how we write that strategy. But when we look at the other expenses on page 160 and the staggering amount that has been spent on the town centre side of things. Yeah. That's going to, I'm picking that's going to be up.
So the two questions here, isn't it? One, is it accurate? I make an assumption it is. Number two is, are we representing, are we reflecting the actual outturn in the way that you want to reflect it? So good accountability and it's accurate. Is it reported in the way that you think it should be reported, Tracy? That's really the key thing. Righty. Any other? I will just come to the financials. I just wanted to actually note. I was looking at page 148 of our agenda and what it is in terms of it. It's the governance performance. And look, just a mild nod to you guys. I know it wasn't what you wanted, but under the community customer satisfaction survey, community is satisfied with leadership representation and decision making. You did achieve 51%. I've got a few. I know a few councils, if I say it, shouldn't I, that would love to have that number. It's not 75, and I would never encourage you to rest on your laurels, but actually 51, and I think you reflect that we it's actually quite a good number. It'd be great to see it higher, but actually don't beat yourself up totally. That's what I'm saying on that one. Okay, in the financials, thank you. You already got us onto that, Tracy. Is there anything that folk want to raise about the financials? These are obviously in a form that is reasonably standard and set, and we have to do it. So if you're trying to work out what BTOCRE means as an acronym, that's going to count it. No, will okay.
Look it up as well. There's so many acronyms.
That's right. Look, firstly,
Insurance ones.
Pardon?
Insurance acronyms.
Oh yeah. Paul, just a couple of sort of leading questions just to get us through this. Firstly, in terms of our accounting policies, nothing has essentially substantially changed. There's one disclosure around audit fees, believe it or not, which is we're stating as a policy disclosure, but in effect, the way we measure our results has not changed from what we anticipated in our annual plan, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we're essentially basing it on so that's important. So there's no change in the way we report our numbers because we've suddenly changed our accounting policies, okay, or indeed our core set of assumptions. Look, I didn't have too much other, but I just want us to check carefully note 22, which is on page 206, 207, or it's 156 of your draft annual report. So contingencies are always a little important one. We have an interesting one that we do have a genuine contingent asset around the Roxburgh Entertainment Centre. Out of interest, are these likely to change between now and 30 September? 30 October?
No.
Okay, doesn't matter. I mean, just other words, you'd have to take that into account if any of these sort of got resolved in that time. The contingent liabilities were pretty consistent with what I would have expected. Now I know it's some PX, but I've also looked at the your report on bad debts and the litigation report, and none of that seemed to be of any significance that it should be raised into the contingency stuff.
No, I don't think so.
But I'm glad you think that because I think that too, Paul. Okay, but I just want to reflect on that. And the other thing that I had sitting in my mind was events subsequent to balance date. Oh no, sorry, I'm thinking of compliance. Actually, where the auditors have talked about this, they may well have particular views about a standard presentation here. I know that the officers would, because of my commitments elsewhere, be working on an expectation about what should be disclosed in here. So I know it's our accounts, but might be worthwhile keeping contact with, no, you're right, Yvonne, as to whether there's any advice on that. My final question is, if you go back to the balance sheet, the other note I looked for, we don't have any provisions in here. Do we not have any landfill provisions or anything like that to make?
No.
We don't. No closed landfills.
We do have closed landfills, but the provision that we did have in place expired, so we have.
Okay, so it's gone. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. And we don't have any, because we're such a great climate, no weather type issues or anything like that?
I think the only area that they've got a little bit of remediation going on is at St Mathens at the moment. I think that's the only one that's causing too many issues.
Wouldn't give rise to a provision.
No.
Cool. It's good. It's not amazing not to see any provisions. So you've heard the two that are most common in terms of councils making provisions. So that's fine. Oh, anybody? Those are my questions primarily around the financials. Any other folk got questions on this? Wait, that's good.
Can I please just ask that if you do have any typos you have come across, if you can please let me know what they are and what page numbers they are on in the annual, and we can make that.
And I just thought you probably noted that Louise Vanderbilt's got her photo at the back, when it's the staff, so you, oh, so it's because she was here last year, so that's why it's in, okay, makes sense, sorry.
The way I always do a quick calculation. I mean, this is really for the analysis, but it does actually reflect that I think Peter, the team have done well. Depreciation's 20 million. And net cash flow from operations is 27. So that actually says that the cash is looking in the right position. We spent $29 million on renewals. So to the extent that our infrastructure strategy is right, even though we've had trouble with CapEx, I think the majority of our spend was around renewals. It does suggest most things are in balance. And we're spending on renewals, renewing our assets, actually in excess. We'll be making up, but in excess of our depreciation, and the cash is in the right place. So that's actually a good result, to be honest. So, you know, it's a rudimentary measure because there's lots of reasons that, you know, might change that, but actually it's a pretty good number, set of numbers to actually have. So well done. Okay, I'm conscious of time, but I want to go through it because I think it's really important that we recognise that in passing this resolution, that the new council need to know that we've actually considered this seriously. So, motion as we receive the report. It was significant, so it wasn't actually quite certain what that meant, Saskia, but that sounds good to me.
Just in relation to the sorry, I'm just going to go back to page. I'm going to swear in. In the recommendations, recommendation B, the word "and" should not be in there. Recommendations to council that they adopt the draft 24-25 annual report for audit, subject to any further comment.
It sounds like you're going to move.
And it's the same in the next one.
The next one. Are you going to move the motion for me, Grace?
Yes, I'll
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. I saw Sally little finger there. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Thank you. Hey, that's wonderful. Miles, can you just bear with me for another 5 minutes while we speed through a couple of little items before we get to brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so I'm up to the internal audit report, which is on page 228.
This is a pretty straightforward update. So we have kicked off the internal audit program. You'd note there that we said leadership group was going to be briefed on Monday. They were. We have sent out the survey, so that went out on Monday as well. So the survey went out to all budget holders. So it's open to next Friday. So we'll keep a little eye with Deloitte on the percentage of responses we're getting back. And we pushed the envelope slightly. Deloitte have agreed to 9 follow-up interviews, and when Paul and I went through and selected the folk, primarily third tier, but also a couple of GMs, really representing the whole business. So some that have more capital intensive work programs through to so low flex on our hit list, much more focus on the operational budgets, and then we've got some that have got a mix of OPEX and CAPEX as well. So everything going well. I do know those interviews have been scheduled in diaries. Deloitte are hoping that they will be in a position to present that at the December meeting. So that update.
It's a brave internal audit, but it's a good one. So, well done. Tracy.
Just at a interest, how does this tie into Te Korawai? If at all.
I think it will be complementary to Te Korawai. So Paul and I were interviewed as part of that program. So we talked a lot about our processes. We were asked about financial acumen and our views on that. So I think there may or may not be similar things that come from both. But you're absolutely right. With Te Korawai, we should make sure we look at this, the outcomes of this alongside what comes from Te Korawai, where we look at where we invest in improvements.
That's great. I just wanted to check one thing, if I could please, Cecily. So this is focused on essentially the ability of our LT. It sounds like you guys have been interviewed as well, and our tier 3 managers to essentially manage budgets.
It's slightly more, so it is quite focused on their understanding of budgets, but also a run of the questions in there around, you know, do they receive the training, you know, what's the relationship like with the finance team and what have you. So while it is a lot of questions around their understanding, they get the information they need. We've also put in some sort of relationship questions with Paul's team too.
And the other thing we're trying to ascertain is when stuff comes to the council to spend either out of budget or increase costs, how are people who write the report understanding how those extras get funded? Because quite often we get a report that says, let's do this, but there's no, how are we going to pay for it type of question. So we're interested to look at that part as well.
It's music to my ears, because that gets me back to my brick and tap financial strategy.
And it really is about, and we mentioned it to the Te Korawai team as well, to Robert and David, that it's about improving the financial acumen across the organisation, because there's pockets where it's done well, but there's pockets where it's not done well.
It'll be great to see the result. As I said, it's a very brave one to do. I haven't seen this sort of review elsewhere, and I think it's a great model. So what are any other comments, questions from Shane? Right, perhaps we could then move to receive the report and look forward to the results. I'll move it. Go over a second, please. Thank you, Tracy. For the motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Audit New Zealand update.
Okay, so this is a really quick paper as well. So you received the management report for our last annual report at our previous meeting. So what you see here in this short paper really is the extract from that management report of the remaining open actions and the new. So you do note in the attachment that we are working through some of them. Some of them we are very hopeful we will obviously get closed out by Audit New Zealand at the next audit. Things such as the inconsistency of the 23-24 rates. We've implemented a new process around that. That's where we had that variation in wording which wasn't 100% crystal clear, that we had to get legal checked, and things like the one-off approval of expenditure. There has been a reminder to ELT and to remind their teams that they cannot sign off their own expenditure. We really carefully manage credit cards in this organisation, so all credit cards are approved by Peter, and there are some non-GMs that do have a credit card because they travel a bit, such as the TCO team. So it's just been really vigilant in terms of those team members, if they're out and about and the GM was with them, that GM cannot sign off their credit card because there's personal well, not personal, it's work expenditure, but it's related to them. So we'll just keep a real eye on that process. And there are still obviously some things that we need to work through to provide an update to this committee, but we'll work through those and provide another update in December.
Great. Questions, Rick?
At one point, around elected members, it's up to the individual elected members to declare their interest by law. And it's something that we need to kind of be over, because there's some elected members that don't declare anything because they believe they don't have a conflict. So I think that's something we need to be all over.
Go to the outcome rather than the actual process, which is the declaration in the first place. That's a good point. Well, just Audit, we've done fair value assessments, obviously, with this annual report, and we've revalued some of our assets, correct?
Yeah.
But have the auditors looked at those yet?
The auditors have the valuations now, so they're working through them.
They're working, even though they're not on site. You've got
The plan, the problem, it's not a problem. The auditors have asked for the valuations early. They've also asked for all of the underlying information, obviously, so that they can then determine whether they have the capability in-house to review the valuations or whether they need to get a third party in to review it. So we have delivered the valuations to them well in advance of them coming on site, so they can actually do a lot of that work prior to that.
right. I raised it here because I'm interested in the contract data for unit rates, because it's been a big thing by the audit office over the course of the last year. Is what are we using in terms of contract rates, and they've got their own database, yada 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 yada. And also, even though you may have done that fair valuation early, you're looking to see that we updated what is to be published 30 June numbers.
Yeah, well,
Contract rates, in terms of the construction index, etc.
what we've done and what they need is we've given them the unit rates that we've used. What they will then compare that is to the national information they have. If we sit outside, that's when they bring the third party people in. If we sit within that, then they're okay to do it in-house. So, yeah.
Okay, well, at least I've got it. So I'm just concerned that if you're suddenly faced with having to do a full valuation on something that fair value wise, you think we're okay, it's just going to put that.
Because this year is unfortunate that it's 3 waters, parks and reserves, swimming pools, roading. So it's all of them got hit.
Structure.
Yeah, so they've got a big task to audit that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Oh, we need to watch that as a separate on. Brilliant. Somebody prepared to. Hey, Mark, thank you. Sally, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, thank you. Miles, thank you for waiting patiently, everybody. Welcome to the meeting again. Paul, throw it over to the man down the end here, or do you want to make any comments? In your hands, Miles.
Thank you. I've got a presentation here. I won't go through it all. I just sort of, it's a bit of an update, but first, the quarterly report. Are there any questions? I won't go through the report. I can just, because there is an economic update at the start. It'll probably be in this.
So I do have a question there, Miles. Thank you. Firstly, if I just go to page 239 of our agenda, I don't know, it's probably about page 3 of your, what's on the slides here to be the third slide. I just wanted to note, obviously important from a risk committee perspective, that we're in full compliance across the prudential limits, which is good news. We should just note that what it's worth. So my question then comes on 2 pages further over, which is where you indicate the interest rate risk management, which I think is always an interesting one. You went about 3 pages down. This might be a different presentation. Sorry, no. You go to page 240. We've got the weighted average cost miles of our fixed rate instruments at 4.47, floating rates down at average at 3.29. All up, we've got a weighted average of 4.54. And I guess over time, particularly with where interest rates are sort of going, we expect a slightly reducing cost, weighted average cost over time. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, good. So you're about to say, so thank you. I wanted to get to the interest rate projection then, and actually why it's trending up by the looks of it. So perhaps I'm close to your presentation. I don't know, but I don't understand that graph.
There's a bit of an update on that, but just that graph is the blue line is your cost of funds and the projected cost of funds. it actually shows it very, very stable out for the next, oh gosh, well, it actually does go down a bit, sorry, from where it currently is. It goes down to probably 4.3.
Yep.
And so that's the blue line. Now the sort of, what would you call it? Is that a mustard coloured line? Orange, mustard, brown, I don't know. You can see that the floating rate, now that's the floating rate plus your margin, is projected to go down and then up.
Yep.
Whereas you are projected to go very flat, but especially when you actually do have that first downward line, I suppose you'd call it, in June 27. That's what the floating rate has already gone up quite a bit by then, and it's projected to go up. But so while the floating rate goes up, you're actually going down. So you are going down to, oh, it's actually lower than that. It's probably, I've got the data at work, it's probably 4.2. And the reason for that is that when, and I think I've mentioned it before, is that when Central Otago first went into a debt situation, that was when interest rates were virtually at their peak.
That's right. Yeah.
So we were forced into interest rates that we didn't like, but we had to take. But we took the minimum amount of fixed rate cover that we had to just to get policy compliant. And those rates, some of those rates were quite high, but they are actually coming off in the next 2, 3, 4 years. So ordinarily, with the floating rate projected to go, well, down and then up, and I'll explain that in a minute, you'd expect most councils' cost of funds is going like that, it's going up. Yours is actually going flat to down. And the reason for that is over a period when interest rates are expected to rise. That's because of these high price fixed rate debt coming off. So yeah, I expect it, and I can't remember what it's probably closer to 4 when I do this presentation.
Yes, and I expect the increasing floating rate and margins as sort of was your presentation about what your outlook is around, dare I say, things overseas and what have you, which will influence it. Thank you, appreciate that. But do you have any other questions before Miles, because this is sort of overview?
Just,
sorry,
sorry,
Tracy.
just quickly about the liquidity ratio. Is that getting close, or that's okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
118, that's fine. We always look at it, and you have to maintain, it's 110%. It's the way the LGFA state that it has to be presented is, it's why it's 110, I don't know, it should be 10%. So you need a minimum liquidity of 5 million and you had 9 million. So that's fine. And liquidity is made up of the undrawn bank facility, which you didn't have any drawings of as at 30 June, plus cash in the bank and any term deposits. So no, that's fine. And as I say, Saskia and Paul and I do keep an eye on it.
Thank you. Okay, buddy, you're
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
There's 10 minutes right on this, Bruce.
Yep.
I won't go too much into this one. The only one is the US 10-year Treasury bond yield in blue and red, New Zealand in black, and the German one in blue. The interesting one is that when that very dark line up there, that was the Liberation Day tariffs in April when US 10-year Treasury bond yield went from, I think it was 0.88 to 4.5% in a day and a half. Now, the US 10-year bond trades in morning and afternoon sessions. The afternoon session that's incorporated into that was the biggest one session movement in 38 years. So that was just the effect of investors disinvesting out of the US and into other assets. And at the time, you can see when the US and New Zealand went up, the German 10-year, and they call it the Bund, their BUND, went down. It had gone up before when the US didn't go up. That was when they announced that they were massively increasing government spending and also their percentage spend of defence on GDP. Percentage of defence spending as a percent of GDP getting towards 5%. But that just shows that the world actually took a slightly different view and said, well, because of what's happening in the US, we don't really want to be investing in the US. So when bond yields go up, it means there's disinvestment, and when they go down, it means that there is investment in the bond market. So there was disinvesting out of the US. New Zealand followed suit, but Germany unusually went down, and that was replicated by other European countries. But we've stabilised more. The important point on this is, the US 10-year bond has been in a 4.2 to 4.5 range. Now, if it breaks 4.2, then it might well go 20 or 30, could go 20 or 30 points lower. It's just broken it last night, and it's at 4.16. But what we really need is for it to break it on a sort of a weekly basis. And tonight and I won't spend as much time on other slides as this, but it's quite important, and we've got the non-farm payrolls data, or their employment report, come out tonight. Now, the last one, you might remember, it came out and it wasn't particularly favourable to the president. So his response to it was to fire the head of the Department of Labour Statistics because he thought it was false. It was fake news. Is this publicly excluded?
No.
God was listening.
Don't worry, Mr. Trump is about to call you. Don't worry, Miles, it's okay. We'll filter the call.
There was a wee story about that. I won't repeat it here. I got quoted in the press once, and I was going to the States and about a month after that. I'll tell you, I won't repeat that one again. Sorry.
Unemployment data is coming out, mate.
So it's coming out tonight. The latest one. So, the problem with the last one was that, there were the number of new jobs created was way below expectations. But also they revised downwards the previous 2 months, and that was what got them. There were 250,000 less jobs created in the previous 2 months. And the reason for that is that they survey about 70,000 firms. It's a model-based approach, and they only got 20,000 responses. That's normal. So when they get the responses come in from the previous 2 months late, they do the revisions. Now, tonight we've got the same thing. The non-farm payrolls data is always the first Friday in the new month. But this is the biggest one of the year because they do the annual revisions down. So if they go down, that US 10-year Treasury, so if that goes down, the US 10-year Treasury bond yield will go down as well. It is a very important number in the US. So sorry, I just spent a bit much time on that one. So the next slide. Just very quickly, I think this is quite relevant, really. It shows the red line is net household disposable income, and the blue line is consumption. And the grey bars, the Manhattans, are either, if it's above the line, then it shows that households are in a situation where they're saving, and if it's below the line, it shows that they're actually spending more than they're earning. You can see the big move up in over COVID when people couldn't spend. But the slightly worrying thing here is that disposable income is below consumption. So households are actually spending their savings or borrowing to survive, and you can see the net savings is actually lower. So that just highlights the cost of living crisis that we've got, and which has been highlighted by quite a number of people. Next one. And I just thought I'd show this one, consumer confidence. It has rebounded, but it has come down recently. I'm a little bit surprised that retail sales, we had it come out last week and it was actually higher. And I'm not really sure how this has happened, because everything you hear about retail sales is that it's down. We've got a client who's got a couple of shopping malls, and they tell me, and that's a pretty good barometer, that things are tough out there at the moment, and especially they have mainly non-discretionary tenants, supermarkets, pharmacies, that sort of thing. But they said that their takings are down, but it's the discretionary ones, the fashion, that sort of thing, which is really down. But consumer confidence is taking another downturn. And I think what's happening in New Zealand at the moment is, the saying used to be last year, survive till 25. Now the saying is survive through 25. So this economic recovery that has been forecast and touted for quite some time has just been delayed. The next one. This is what's called the Nowcast survey from the Reserve Bank. And what it's done is it's been produced by the Reserve Bank in response to the fact that New Zealand is one of the last countries in the world to get its GDP number out. So we don't get our June quarter GDP number out till the third week of month of September. So it's virtually the end of the next quarter. But what it's showing is that it's trying to get things up to date. So there's a little The picture is more up to date here. So this is sort of June, July. Now the two big ones that have the big ones that have actually showing a fall, these surveys. Now the survey is business confidence surveys. It's survey of business opinion today. ANZ's consumer and business confidence, what they call the purchasing managers index factory for manufacturing and for services. But they are all down sharply. The other one, others, so that's everything else. It's not here. And manufacturing is down as well. So this is basically the end of June here. They're expecting negative GDP for the second quarter, for the June quarter, and then for it to improve. Because this is actually very up to date. So, I mean, this is right up. And interestingly, these surveys are actually turning up, and retail and consumption. Well, this actually factors in the latest retail sales data, which was actually unexpectedly high. So here is supposedly an increase in GDP, this low that we've had, but we have to see if it'll actually come out in reality. Next one. These are monetary policy expectations from the market. So the market is actually factoring in what these numbers show is that it's factoring in a 4.16 and 84% chance that the OCR will fall to 275 in October, and it's factoring in a 72% chance that it will be at 2.5 in November. Now the market is actually slightly behind, and New Zealand is in the black, so that's where the OCR has gone and then where it's projected to go. Now the market is actually slightly behind the Reserve Bank. And for once I think, oh, actually this is on the next slide. So that's what we call the market expectations, and these are the financial market expectations. Now on the next slide is the bank OCR projections, and you think that's a total contradiction. Well, this is the bank economists. So the previous one you loosely described as the traders, what they were projecting, and they were quite projecting 2.5. These are the bank economists and they're all showing that in the fourth quarter of this year that will go down to 2.5%. And the Reserve Bank are projecting 2.5%. So in the monetary policy statement, not last week, the week before, the Reserve Bank, after pausing the OCR easing cycle, resumed it and dropped it by 25 points to 3%, but they projected it, but it will get to 2.5%. Now, they projected it in the first quarter of 26, but they produced an average. Now, I won't go into the maths behind the average, but what it shows is that it has to get to 2.5% by November to produce the March average, if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't. I think the interesting thing about it is that they normally review the cash rate, the OCR, every 6 weeks, but over Christmas there's nearly a 3-month gap. So they don't get a chance to review it between November and February. And I don't think that if the economy, and we'll get confirmed probably by the June quarter GDP data out in a few weeks, is that if the economy is still struggling, I don't think they can afford to have the OCR at 2.75. It has to drop to 2.5 because I don't think they want sort of the economy to be hanging out in a precarious, well, a less than optimal state or in a state that's not showing any too much signs of recovery for 3 months when they can't increase it. Does that make any sense? Next slide. Sake of time, I won't bother with this. It just shows the swap rates, which are above the OCR and the 90-day rate. If you keep going. And this just highlights the change in the shape of interest rates in New Zealand. Now, often we get asked, are interest rates going up or are they going down, or what are they doing, or are they doing nothing? Normally they're going up, they're going down. But sometimes some are going up and some are going down, or some are going down and some are not going down. And I know that sounds a contradiction again, but what each line shows in the dotted blue line, the dotted blue line is the where the interest rates were 12 months ago. So it's where each line is where interest rates were on a given day, each interest rate from 3 months out to 10 years. So a year ago, the 3-month rate was at 5.25%, and the 10-year rate was about just under 4%. Now you can see with that solid blue line down the bottom, the OCR or 90-day rate is now at 3. The 10-year rate is virtually unmoved. So while short-term interest rates have come down, long-term rates haven't. And this is just what we call the changing shape of the yield curve. So if you ask me what have interest rates done over the last 12 months, I'd say, well, short-term rates have come down, medium-term rates have come down a bit, and long-term rates have come down very little. They are lower. So just bear that in mind. What it is it's a positive sloping yield curve, which is normal. And what we had with what we call the inverted yield curve, where short-term rates were higher and long-term rates were lower, as an inverted yield curve, we've only had 2 in the last 25 years, and they're normally indicative of the fact that we're going into a recession and the interest rates will have to fall. And that's exactly what happened in 2008, and it's exactly what happened 2 years ago. The next one, I won't worry about that, keep going. And this is your position right now. You've got a very minor policy breach. You didn't have one at the end of June, but there is one right now which we will look to rectify the policy breach. So it's only just happened. That line below that red line, and I'll show you what we're going to do about it. So if we just flip through to the next slide. To rectify that, if we took out 2 interest rate swaps, 6 million and 4 million, I'll be talking about it with Paul and Donna and Saskia, we'll talk about it with you later. If we will take out these swaps before the end of September, and that produces that dotted line, which shows that you're going to be policy compliant. And the rates that we're looking at, which I can refine them, are 3.42 and 3.75. Now they're higher than the floating rate, but as I said, that's what we call the positive sloping yield curve. You just can't help it. I mean, to give yourself certainty, it does cost you. It's just like insurance. I mean, to give yourself certainty, it costs you something. So that's that slide, and the next one, and that's your one, Bruce. That does, so your cost of funds is down. So what we 4.54%, this is showing it's more like about 4.25%. This graph isn't totally accurate. It's just a function of the model. It's probably higher. It's slightly higher than that rate indicates, but it will come down to that rate. I won't go into the Excel irregularities of it, but 4.54 down to say 4.3, 4.25 is a good result. And then that shows that you're very stable out till 28, 29. And that's despite the fact that the floating rate, which includes your margin, is going up quite sharply. So while that goes from 3.5 up to 4.2, your interest rates don't change at all. Weighted average interest rate, and that's because of those high price bonds coming off. I don't think that's it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Miles, we've talked a wee bit about our LPP plans, how we plan going forward for 10 years. And this becomes incredibly relevant because we also recognise one of the big risks is affordability. And it's stark, particularly when you look at the household position that you're showing there. And you know well the criticism local governments come under in terms of its rate increases. So it does bring us back into that area. You know what I'm going to say, Paul, and I won't say it. So that's a really, really interesting analysis. Any questions for Miles here, guys? Thank you for alluding to the fact that we have technically a breach today, and that actually it will be fixed. I appreciate that that's the situation as well. And given we're looking previously at a June report, it's good to have that up to date.
Can I just say something for about 2 minutes, just because I think it's very relevant, water debt and what's happening with the water reforms. We're pretty heavily involved with them at the moment. In fact, I spent half my day talking with my colleague about water. He actually rang me, he's on 5-week holiday, he rang me from Oslo at 11 o'clock at night to talk about it. As I understand it, Central Otago is joining with Paul and Clifton.
Correct.
And I don't know what's happening with Waitaki or Waimati or Mackenzie. And I'm allowed to say it, we're advising Selwyn Water. So they're the first one to go. And we're sort of lucky that we're at the forefront of it, but it's very complex and the playbook for it hasn't been written. So we will know the pitfalls, we'll know not shortcuts, but we'll know the most appropriate way to go forward. So we'd be keen to be involved with you and they're setting up a single council CCO, you're setting up a 3-council CCO, and it may become 4. So I just thought I'd point that out. Now, and I've had this question asked quite often, as far as your future debt goes, because your debt will reduce, what percentage of your debt is water related?
100%.
But you will probably lose that. You'll lose the requirement to pay the water related debt, the interest on the water related debt. But in the meantime, until we know it, we have to continue with business as usual because we'll be reporting policy breaches. But and still I'll take another minute, Bruce. You will lose the responsibility to pay interest on that debt, so you won't have any exposure to it. And debt will remain in the existing debt probably will remain in your name, but the new entity will pay the interest from it because it's a term called you can't novate it over to the new entity, and that's because of a credit rating issues. And also any interest rate swaps, the new entity will have the requirement to pay either pay or receive the difference on the interest rate swap. So it's not as if we just say, right, July 27, we're not going to do anything because your debt's going to go like that. We have to continue, and that will be taken care of. And my last point is just congratulations it has been released, hasn't it, the credit rating, Saskia? Yeah, so you got an extremely good credit rating, AA. You're higher than Auckland and Christchurch and Wellington, and you're probably the envy of quite a few. Your other partners, Or and Clusa, got AA minus. So that's a very good result. So well done.
Yes.
Actually,
Lower your borrowing costs.
Compared to some of my other clients, that's a good number. Or good grades. So
yeah, so that will actually lower your borrowing costs. New borrowing costs, it's not retrospective, it doesn't apply to existing debt, but it will apply to new debt. But it's also the optics of it. I mean, it just shows that, you were saying earlier, Bruce, about the satisfaction rating and that, and I just think that, that's an endorsement of the current council and the management as to how well they've done, because there aren't many AA's in New Zealand, to be quite honest. That's me.
Great. Good to be there. Good news.
Yeah, thank you.
Righty, thank you for that, Miles. I'm sorry that we might be a bit short, but I don't think we need to keep moving. So we have that great news. We need to receive Miles. Emma, thank you, Sarah. Motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Righty, I need to keep. I'm sort of my hour behind. Probably am. We've been working pretty hard. Do you folk need a break? I know we're under pressure, but do we actually need a break? You need to. Okay, I think we could do with a couple of minutes, 5 minutes.
No, that's really interesting. We had a good session
Otherwise, none of us will have lunch and no quorum. You guys got to go to Queenstown. Buddy, delegations register, please. Thank you.
So the review of delegations was mentioned in the last audit committee meeting, and in that meeting we committed to bringing you an update on that work. So in the interest of time, I'll speed through this. What we've got is pretty much a sort of three-pronged approach to the review of delegations. So Wayne is going to be reviewing the delegations to community committees, portfolios, and the chief executive. I'm reviewing the delegations from the chief executive to staff, and Duncan is reviewing overall the legality of all delegations and what legislation looks like in terms of where there are differences with what's allowed for delegating and what's not. So what our aim is to get these into a good position for the new triennium. So there will be an interim delegations register from Wayne for the community boards, committees, portfolios and chief executive. And then we'll provide, once we've got through whether there are any changes that are required and what the direction is from the new council, we'll provide up-to-date drafts, and they will hopefully be approved as soon as possible, unless there are any major changes requested, in which case we'll have to go back and make some wholesale changes. So in addition to the review, the update, we do intend to use the local delegation software. So that is an Algim provided piece of software that is built specifically for local government. And in that we've got delegations by legislation, by law, and financial and general delegations as well. So it will provide a really easy centralised place for all those delegations to sit, and staff can clearly and easily look at what is delegated to them, what's not. So it should really enhance the process. The legislation that's in that system is reviewed, I believe, quarterly by Simpson Grayson. So we will be able to see where legislation is updated as well. So we'll get a little reminder to say, hey, actually, this piece of legislation has just had a review. It's been updated. Do you want to change anything in relation to that? So it should give us a really good base to work from.
Thank you for that, Amelia. Duncan, anything from your side you need to raise?
I think it's really important to understand how delegation in the local government context works from a lawyer's point of view, from a legal point of view. It's not, I mean, the word delegation sort of slips glibly off the tongue, but what is it actually, what is the actual legal underpinnings of it? How does it work? And that's part of the task that I'm undertaking at the moment. It's probably a bigger task than I'd like to think. But I think it's an important one. There's no, at the end of the day, there's no substitute, despite what others might like to think, there's no substitute just slogging your way through the particular pieces of legislation to see needs to be delegated, and understanding how that is to be done. There are sensitivities around certain areas, enforcement, for example. One just has to sort of understand how it all fits together.
Brilliant. Thank you, mate. Okay, any comments, questions on this? Good, massively needed process for any council. I agree with that. Any questions, comments?
It'll just be good going forward for the next triennium.
Yeah. It raises really interesting questions, and I think I see your name seems to be very similar. It comes up here, we land for community boards, because a lot of that raised with me when it came to not diversity, what do we call it? Distritisation, sorry. Okay, and all those sorts of things. So I suspect it's one of those ones that needs quite a shake up. So that's fine. Okay. So more to come. And you but your timeline, which will be long before our next meeting, is that you've got this more or less in place media in time for the new. Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for that. We can move to receive them. Thank you, Tamar. Thank you, Tracy. In favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Appreciate that. Health and safety. Right, welcome you guys.
Morning. I take it the report has been received by everyone.
Yep.
Starting off, I think the main focus for the last quarter, April to June, was really focusing around the getting the satellite devices out and operational. That has been done and staff have been trained. All departments except for really the business support governance and the people and culture teams have been trained at this point, just because we've purchased the 7 and it's more about focusing on the high risk areas rather than the office bound staff. So that has been a focal point there. Have you got any questions around that?
Thank you for that. Look, this is a really good report. In fact, I've actually got lots of questions. I'd love to spend time, but I probably don't. Folk, do we have questions that you'd like to raise, Anita, or indeed Louise? Just a couple from me. Sorry, I'm sort of depressed you, probably, Louise. The KPMG audit, when was that done?
That was May 23, I believe. 23.
Yeah, so it's quite so that's why there's an emphasis on actually sort of somewhat getting towards the end of getting those recommendations implemented. And it looks like you're a fair way through. When I look at the table, which where's the table? I thought I saw a table there. I might think about a different paper. I probably am. I'm trying to work out how many were undone. It doesn't matter. I'm doing it. But key thing there is that you're getting towards the end of that process. Probably, I said at 23, that probably says it's about time for another review.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
We've really built our strategy around those audit requirements, because it was clear and defined on what we needed to improve on as an organisation. So that's why we keep referring back to that KPMG audit, because it is the direction that we should be going in. And of course, with anything health, safety and wellbeing, it's about the leadership and the engagement of it and the education of the team. And it's a continual thing.
Yeah. I suspect this was a lot larger than the organisation when it actually occurred, but I was interested in that truck that lost part of the load. And I presume that it hit a council vehicle. Were the police involved in that?
No, it was.
I didn't speak to that. That's me.
It was. I did go see the police. Look, it was relatively minor. Managed to hold the line going around the corner, and unfortunately it was at dusk and I didn't get a description of the truck, but it was pretty dangerous.
Oh,
and I remember talking to Julie about that. Yeah. But yeah, I did provide the police just in case some of the witnesses had reported it. But they.
Yeah, right. Well, firstly, I'm glad you're safe.
It did quite a bit of damage, nearly $10,000 of damage to a council.
Well, that's why when I said, it was this was a near miss. Well, actually, it wasn't a near miss. It was an accident.
Oh, there's 2 separate. That's a different one.
Oh,
sorry. Sorry.
Oh, radio. Okay.
The report relates to the crew from the Cromwell Pool coming across to Alex, and it was that vehicle for this instance that was struck by the log, but they didn't have any damage or anything, and managed to keep control of the vehicle, which was good, but yeah, caused them a bit of anxiety.
Because that was a fatality in Wanaka a number of years ago.
Yeah. So
so whereabouts? You said Wanaka.
In Wanaka they had
I thought we had a bad one on the Roxburgh Hills, or perhaps I'm going way back when I was a kid. Bad one on the Roxburgh Hills. Oh, it's a bit scary, and there was when a logging truck lost its load and killed people. Okay, look, that's fine. I mean, I'm just interested to some extent about actually these things get followed through in the right way, and I would have thought that probably might have involved police if that had been possible. Okay, look, I was interested actually. Sorry, I don't normally get too. I'm always interested in systems here, Nita, but I'm interested. Aggressive behaviours on page 253 was reported at during water sampling at Alexandra Wastewater Treatment Plant. I would have thought actually discharge point. Sorry, I would have thought just sampling water was a fairly inoffensive matter, but this has obviously got somebody.
The topical nature of the shot over system.
Yep.
And everything flowing down the river. but it's been quite a topical point of conversation.
Right, okay.
And so people would just associate something like that. It was the bigger issue of perhaps what was happening in the shot over and the impact. That sort of stuff.
But it affected our staff. I mean, it's a Queenstown fire. That's our problem. Look, thank you for the advice around the EAP. I found that really useful. And it does reflect that our staff are affected, and I'm glad that they're making use of it, and I'm sure you guys are encouraging it. I was very interested and liked the perhaps the other side that doesn't counter EAP. But I've got to confess, I always enjoy reading what Central Otago does around wellbeing, and that list of things that you've done there on page 259 is superb. Peter, this is more than I see in councils twice your size, and I mean I want to encourage you to continue doing that. I could look at each one of those and say, well, do you need to do it? Who knows what combination of good things that you do here helps an individual, because it's often highly personal. I reckon it's actually great what you're doing. I hope you can still find the time to keep those initiatives going, and be my view. You will? Good.
And I just noted on page 257, job satisfaction was the most frequently raised topic in positive comments, marking an improvement from the previous period. So that's great as well. Yeah.
Yes, it is good to see that coming through.
And it's really aligned to the strategy, a people and culture strategy with learning and development. So we've done a comprehensive work program for that coming up, and we're probably halfway through the journey, aren't we?
Yeah.
So it's our into health and safety and HR, and so hopefully strengthening everyone's capability, because we know it's one of the big factors that keep people satisfied in employment, and that is growing.
And I think one of the things that, often people will say, well, why are you doing this and that for staff? Because happy staff give better service.
They do. And more productivity.
And they stay.
And they stay.
Yeah.
Which brings down costs.
Yep. It does.
Right. Okay, look, thank you for that. I'm sorry that we've been a wee bit rude, and Anita, I know you had to sit in the back for a bit, but I'm keen to move on. Any other questions from Anita or for Louise? No? Have a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sally. The motion, all those in favour, say aye. Yes, it's carried. Here's report. Gee whiz, how long have you been ahead? No, look, we've done with this. We've dealt with this really well. I know you guys are getting away for a regional deal, and I was interested, but fortunately I had a nice briefing from Tamar. Thank you for that, Tamar. But I'm not dealing as a risk chair. I've become involved in one elsewhere, and it's I suspect it's the devil's in the detail on these, and I think you guys know that as well. OTP, well done. Can I say it again? I know I had a few views about actually have we, let's leave the financial strategy and what have you, but can I just say well done? That's you're the second council I've talked about the next LTP with. You're the first to get a paper to an audit committee. So again, Peter, punching above your weight, if I can say that, relative to the biggies. And the other one I've been speaking to is a metro. It might be by mere chance, but we get to have our meeting and on that. So you guys are the first off the cab. So well done. Hey, you've heard even a wee bit from it's about the debt. And you've mentioned it a wee bit. I think it's great, by the way, that you're in a joint arrangement. And I think I've been a strong supporter of that. And you know that I've tried to encourage one or two others to join us here. For mixing my metaphors, to consummate the marriage, though, is going to be tough. It's not because I have a view about Clutha or Gore. In fact, I'm glad they're in here. But for other purposes, I've been looking at collaboration, and actually doing it by yourself is easier. Choosing the harder path, which for good reason you've got to take. But it's going to be a challenge over the next couple of years, and I'm just conscious that along with the LTP, which that thresh that this will be quite a challenge. And my final comment is, because I know it's the last meeting, all the best for the elections. In all seriousness, that's me. And we're going to take this. Is there anything else you guys would like to raise, either in question to me or anything that you raise at the stage, guys? Right. I think we need to keep moving. So why don't we take both those reports and I'll move from the chair. We received them. Google reports. Thanks, Tamar. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Governance report. Wayne, thank you. I think we can almost take this as read. I would expect that in our assumption, my December meeting, could be somebody else's, we'll get the management report out of the auditors on the, actually I said on 24-25 as well, Paul. I think you said they're bringing the LTP, but I'd expect a memo from the very least in terms of it. So, and just a small question, Paul, and again, I'm making some presumption here. But if assuming I'm there, I think on the 5th of December, the time is set for just a wee bit of a induction session for the new committee, if you've got it. So if you could add that to the program, that'd be really good.
Funded on that board, the Southern Waters done well should be on the audit as well. I didn't see it specifically because that's going to be quite a big thing in the next going.
Yeah, can we come back to under PX?
Okay.
Okay, because I want to raise a question about what are our real strategic risks, and you might be getting really close to one of mine. If I can put it that way. So let's not lose sight of that. It might be we could then come back and say there could be a change here as well. Okay, I'm going to move from the chair that we take that updated. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Oh, I do. Somebody.
Yeah.
Wayne, there we are, Tamar, and it's agreed. Thank you. Later the next meeting, 4th of December. I thought it was the 5th. The 5th. Thank you. There we go. That's. I hope you all do. I'd love to be back and I'd love to see you guys back. Okay, page 266, we've got the formal motions to move the PX. Reasonable, I think. Let's move it to over second. Thank you, Tamar. Is there any discussion on the motion? These go under PX. Good. I'll move the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. There's no break. Sorry. Are we in non-public?